Welcome to Art Talk, presented by the Phillips Mill Community Association. I'm your host, Laura Womack, and with me is Art Talk executive producer, Jen McHugh.
Hi, everyone.
Today, we're very excited to look at the work of Csilla Sadloch, who's been a Phillips Mill Award winner many times. She studied fine art at Montclair State University and has had several one-person shows, including at the Woodmere Art Museum. Csilla is known for her large graphite drawings of plant matter. They are tours de force, really, with their detail and meticulousness on a grand scale. She examines meandering vines and curled bark with the exactitude of a microscope. She's equally skilled in painting nature. The subject matter is inspired by her long walks in the woods, where the details of nature capture her sharply focused gaze. She calls it hyper-examination. The result is a realism taken to such an extreme that it becomes almost an abstraction. I've been looking forward to talking with Csilla about these works, but Csilla has a surprise for us today. During the pandemic, she began working in an entirely different genre, which she is debuting here on Art Talk. These works have not been displayed publicly before now, so you're here for the big reveal. Csilla, welcome to Art Talk.
Thank you.
And in the attendees, we are welcome to you as well. Please join us with your comments and questions by typing them into the Q&A. We love to include you in the conversation. Jen puts relevant information for attendees in the chat, so please help us by keeping the questions in one place, easy to find, easy to bring into the conversation. Please put them in the Q&A. All right. Csilla, I like to start by looking at work, but I think one thing is important for people to understand before we look at your work, and that is the scale. You work on a very large scale. I think in the past, up to 40, 50 inches, maybe more. Why so large?
If you change the scale on an object, especially something that may be very small, like a curled bark or something tiny that I would find out walking, if I don't enlarge it, it may not be interesting enough to look at. So by enlarging it, it's more in your face. And I want to be in the environment rather than, I mean, I do love a poetic jewel small piece as well. For that, you have to go quite close, but for larger pieces, it becomes part of your environment. And that appeals to me.
Okay, great. Let's take a look. We're going to go a little bit chronologically, and our team, including Dennis Riley, have dug up some of your very early works, Csilla, from when you were a student. So let's start there, and then we'll get into some of the more recent things you've been working on. Okay, going back to your student days, Csilla, I think we're already seeing, this is so different from what we've seen from you, and in fact, what we're seeing behind you now. But I think the interest in drawing was there. You started early with drawing, and the sort of the visceral emotionality of it too, I think was there early on.
Yeah, I was thinking as I was getting ready for our talk that in my college years, as a youngster, I think I had access to emotion relatively quickly. I don't know if I still have that same access. I don't deal with emotional subject matter right now, but the claustrophobia, the exaggerated heads, bodies, the volume. For some reason, I really liked big women. I think it may have been, I was studying mythology at the time, and the matriarchal world that we may have come from before the patriarchal values took hold in our cultures. So really, these are Earth mothers. The artwork on the right, the eternal Earth mother who will always welcome you back. And it's a forgiving, forgiving mother. And also, I'm sure many of us have memories of hugging soft ladies, older ladies, grandmothers or whatnot, as I had a grandmother that was soft as a pillow. So those are safe, welcoming places to, to remember. And the little one on the left is just a really tiny etching, but there is that foreboding character. I don't know what his teeth are gnarled and he looks petrified, but I like it. I still like the image, even though I would technically change a lot of things in it, but it was my first attempt at etching, and the image was still strong enough for me at the time. It still is.
It's interesting to say that your emotions were so much more accessible then, because we noted on this show earlier with, for example, the youth art show of the Phillips Mill Youth Art Show, that the young artists had so much that was personal and emotional in their work. So I just wanted to make that connection because it's valuable.
Yeah, I think you're right. That in our youth is when we're trying to figure out who we are, which way we're going, who am I? So it would be the time for search and for identity. Yeah.
And you had some challenges. We might get to that. You had some challenges with identity.
With my history coming from Hungary during the revolution, and the big change that brought about, the loss of home, finding a new culture to start all over in, and so I think that I'm familiar with the possibility of events happening that are not going to turn out well. So it's more of maybe a pessimistic view. Although my life right now is quite stable, but our youth was more tumultuous.
Right. Keeping that in mind, I think we have another of your youth works coming up next, Jen. More etchings, and I think they're quite sophisticated, particularly for student work.
I couldn't. The shame of it all is I could only do 2 of them, because I wanted to. At that time too, I wanted to do series. And I can get 1 or 2 out, but after that, I'm repeating myself and it just seemed redundant. But these 2, the one on the left is the first one. The second one became much more polished. And at that time, I was influenced by this painter, Richard Lindner. And I liked the shooting gallery feel to it. I just couldn't explore it. I didn't know where to take it afterwards. I did do some more cutouts that played with the idea of the shooting gallery, everything being on the same plane or shallow plane. And so it worked, but and they're strong enough. And these are etchings too, and they're large etchings. And also I was interested in black and white. The one on the left managed a lot better with the black. The second one is more gray, but I always wanted to learn how to do black in etching, and I didn't take printmaking far enough to explore how to get a really deep, rich black.
I want to capture what you were saying about it being on the same plane, because I think that I would love people to keep that in mind as we go forward through the work we're more familiar with into the work that you've been doing very recently.
Yes, that's a good, I didn't see that. You just brought something to my attention.
Jen caught that as well, so we're seeing it.
Wow. Okay.
All right, so
I may be coming back to my roots.
there you go. I think that happens, and that's a special place when it does. All right, Jen, let's head to the next work, Crayon on Paper.
Oh, these, yeah.
I think, here we go. So Sheila, this is a fascinating work. And again, I think we're talking about your history and that sense of identity, sense of place. We're seeing that here, aren't we?
Yeah, I think with walking the plank, don't fall between the cracks. I mean, yeah, this was in the 80s, and for the life of me, I just didn't know what was worth doing, what's worth painting and spending your time on. And I was so desperate that I said, even if I have to paint the door frames and the window frames and anything that's immediately in front of me, I'm just going to do it, because that was a question that was haunting me for a long time. I did the walls in my house. They didn't look like the walls in my house, but they're large drawings. They are large, and they're done with Caran d'Ache, I think, or maybe Prismacolor. But it was a difficult medium to work with, to saturate. So I did a few, and I didn't know what to do with them. They just are sort of hidden away, still in my closet somewhere. They don't see the light of day. They were done and never shown.
I just think it's interesting. The doors are open, but the mood is not especially welcoming.
Oh, no.
To go through. Okay, Jen, milkweed is next. And this is thoroughly Csilla Sadloch painting. And you were saying in the last painting, you were trying to decide what was worth painting. Here we're looking at a plant. It's a beautiful painting, but the mood is not serene, or it's not what we think of as a pastoral, which has a sort of a lilting quality. And in fact, this is milkweed. This is not even a desirable plant. How did you decide what was worth painting, and how did you settle on the subjects you ended up with?
Once I made a decision to go to oils, it was really easy to do something. It wasn't easy, I shouldn't say that. I could manipulate the paint much better than I had been able to do with acrylics. So I just love the look of the milkweed, because it's the one pod or the plant that looks like a bird or something else. It doesn't. If I paint a peony, you're going to be attracted to the peony for it's an obvious, beautiful plant. What I liked were plants that were either starting to bloom or coming out of the earth, or looking, or dying, or fading. That's when there's beauty for me. And these were so sensual that I didn't think of it as dangerous at that time at all. Although the collector who bought it said to me, he said, by the way, are you aware that there's a sexual component to this painting? And I said, you mean you found it? Because this painting has not been shown because it was bought right away when the show opened. So really the collector is the one who saw it. I mean, it lived with me for a short while, but when you look at the bottom milkweed, I suppose it's the way it's opening up, or the closing, and the fecundity of the seeds being burst open. It's a luscious subject. And I think that's the other side message, is the fecundity of the plant.
I just want to acknowledge our audience. Longia Miller, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, points out that in addition to this being a beautiful painting, the milkweed is critical to monarch butterfly survival. They are important. And yes, I agree with you, Longia. And we've planted them in our garden as well. Just acknowledging where they were at the time when you were painting this, that you were seeing a beauty that much of the world had not stumbled back onto at the time. So just want to acknowledge that comment, and also the critical importance of milkweed. Next,
it's
sorry.
Just to go back to the plant for a second, when it's flowering, it smells as its fragrance is like a lilacs. And the stages that the plant goes through, I want to bring milkweed in my yard somewhere, because I want to see when these pods form. I've never seen them. I've never seen the time period at which the pods do come out, because right now they're not out yet, not at this season.
All right, Sheila, I have some, so we'll be in touch about that.
Good.
And I think it's a great point also, that, I mean, that really is the point in a way of this painting. It's seeing the beauty in I've written in my notes, the subquotidian, what is normally considered beneath our notice. You've, drawn the focus and you've exploded it up into 51 inches of, and I can't do better than your description of the attraction of these milkweed pods. So, okay, next one. All right, so here, I hope everybody has a large screen and can see this, because I think this, when I saw your student work, Sheila, I thought it was fascinating to relate these crows. I feel like in many ways, these are the characters in your more recent paintings, going back to those student figures.
Yeah. Huh.
So somehow you've anthropomorphized these crows, because there's a relationship going on here. First of all, you have to look closely to find the three crows. I saw two fairly quickly. I read the title and, oh, there's a third. Where is he?
Wow. No, it's a cool connection. I see it from our discussion. I see it, but I didn't know. I didn't ever make the connection, but I see where you're seeing it. Yes.
So so we'll come back to this painting, perhaps. That makes me think, I mean, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, why art, Sheila? Because when I look at your work, I feel not just the reaction to the painting, but I, if you don't mind my saying, I feel you in them. I feel the mind that is at work behind your work. And what's happening in your mind is obviously your business, but you could have gone so many places with it. You could have been a writer or a psychologist, or so. I'm interested in what makes people choose to express themselves in particular ways. Why art for you?
Well, many of us, most artists, I guess, would say that while they're very young, I remember being 7, 8 years old, but thinking I can do it, I can draw. And it always surprised people around me that I could do it. And I just had, somehow or another, there was a knowing that I had the ability to render. So I don't know how that happens. I suppose my father was, maybe it's an inherent thing. If you inherit it. My father had the same task at one time in his life. He couldn't decide if he wanted to be an artist. So I found that out later. But I couldn't get enough of it as a youngster because it truly interested me. But I didn't take it seriously until I was about maybe 18 years old. And that was to search for identity. I needed to feel that I had something special. And art gave me that venue, that avenue, so it became a search for the self. And that, I think that's what brought me to art.
So Sheila, thank you for that. What's going on with these three crows here? Is there a story?
Actually none. I wanted rhythm. I wanted rhythm in the work. And it's the curly willow. I did find what a curly willow was in the internet. And at that time, I think this may have happened, For a year or so, I was really interested in crows, but it wasn't any bird. It was the crow. And the crow, I think, knowing it's intelligent and knowing that it has some foreboding qualities, somehow or another more is insinuated with a crow than maybe with a finch. So I liked it for the psychology. I mean, I chose it for the psychology. And then, of course, every leaf is curled and it's monochromatic. And I was playing a lot at that time with monochromatic paintings, not wanting to bring in too much color. I have one big problem with work at this time that is, I hate to make it sound pejorative, but I was worried that it would be too illustrative. It is, and I can't take that away from it, but sometimes illustration gets in the art circles, when we say something is illustrated or it looks like an illustration, it's almost a pejorative, like it's saying too much.
Right.
So I just know it's the rhythm. It's the rhythm that interested me, and I wanted to keep that going. I want that to be the focal point, and I kept it monochromatic for that reason.
Very nice. All right, Jen, what's our next painting or artwork?
Well, there's more birds.
More birds. Now, these aren't crows.
They're not crows. I don't know what kind of birds they are. But my fascination started because I was in Georgia on a vacation, and I found these little plants that looked like they had tentacles coming out, as if the plant, I like the idea, what if the plant were attacking the birds instead of the other way around? And so this is, the birds are being snared or captured, but it is an allegorical idea, I suppose, in going into dangerous territory, but the plants are on the attack.
Yeah, and at first glance, again, it's a pretty picture. It's beautiful. And I love the smoothness that you achieve in these textures. I suppose we often talk technically. Would you like to talk at all about how you achieve that smoothness? I wonder if it's, with the extreme shading on your drawings, is there a relationship there, or you tell us?
One of my gallerist, Chris Schmidt, had said one time, and it was a compliment. I was flattered. He said, well, you just go an extra step farther, in your work. There's something by an extra step, I think he meant the finish. And if I didn't do that extra step, would the painting be as captivating? And by that, I think he meant just the, what I did do with these works is I started to glaze them. I would start with an opaque drawing or opaque paint and gradually add liquid, I think is what I was using at the time, but more and more transparent so that it feels more atmospheric. I don't know if that's the right word, but really refined the surface. The surface was refined. And it is, I mean, even close up, it feels refined. And it is doing that extra step that makes them feel special.
Oh, that is
yeah,
very special, Sheila. Okay, next painting, please. Wait, before we go forward, let's stay on this. We have a question from Jean. Do you want to share that, Jen, for us?
Sure. Jean wants to know, are these photos of the birds? Do you take a photograph and work from there? A quick drawing and a photo taken when the inspiration inspires you?
I did search the web for the birds. And I found, they were black and white. I don't remember. I needed to place them. So the shape of the bird or the I don't even, I must have opened the mouth certainly farther than the picture would have, because it's very hard to capture a bird in motion with a camera. But I did find moving images of birds, and I needed the movement. And it wasn't my photograph in that case. The plants were mine, or the plants are imagined. For the most part, the leaves are added in. Did I answer the question correctly, or did I go off stream a little bit? I don't know.
I think that's good. What do you think, Jen? I think that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is island root.
That's not, oh, there's iron.
Oh, sorry.
That's fine.
Can we go back to Century? My apologies. There we go. Yeah, before we go into the drawings. And again, this reminds me of the Doors again at the beginning. You know, you have these ravens who are guarding this hole in the ground. It's a darkness, or the crows rather. There's a darkness at the center of this, you know, lovely collage of the leaves. Sheila.
You made a good point again. Laura, you're good at this. It's funny because I was thinking of having a bird's eye view. So if I'm on top of the tree and looking down at the world or humanity, it might be an interesting picture, but there is a danger because it is a pretty dark area that they're gleaming through. So the door or having that opening or the well to fall through may indicate a certain amount of danger, you know, or mystery. I mean, it's not spelled out, it's for sure, but it is interesting that there's monochromatically, they pretty much are all in the same tone or value. There's some higher textures in the oranges and such, but pretty much it's, you know, it's somewhat monochromatic, I guess I could say that.
And again, that ominousness, the foreboding.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about that, but it's there. It's there.
Okay, now to island root, which, you know, I think this is a tour de force. There's no, I sort of would like people to just sit with this for a minute and take in the accomplishment that is this drawing.
It's so interesting to me because I think it is my best work. And yet you have to go, the longer you have it, the more it reveals itself. And a friend of mine has just recently visited it, and she thinks it's my best work. And you could stay with it. And I think that's what's interesting, is when the longer you have a piece of art and it still interests you and there's still something to be learned from it, you know, it's a good feeling when that happens.
Oh,
yeah.
I remember this in the show. It's just, it's breathtaking. And I'm also interested in the title, Island Root.
Yeah.
The solitary comes back.
Yeah. Well, there is a section in Washington Crossing State Park. I had my dog with me, and I always had to find a place to take him swimming. And I was able to cross over from the Pennsylvania side. There is an island north of the bridge, and nobody ever went on the island. I mean, it wasn't easy. I had to go into water in order to cross, but the island was all mine. There was nobody ever there. And there was this gorgeous tree that was toppled. And because it had been submerged in water part of the time, the root system was clean. And I mean, I would do another one of these or versions of it. I don't know if it would be redundant or not, but it was a beautiful thing to see it unearthed.
Oh.
And yeah, the life underneath.
Right. And of
Yeah.
course, this is 40 by 40 inches. We have a question on your scale, Sheila. I
Yes.
think that just even contemplating making this level of detail on 40 by 40, but let's, Jen, if you could share Lisa's question with us, please.
Okay.
Sure. Lisa wants to know, she says, I am enchanted by the scale of your works. How did you come to go big, bigger, biggest?
I wish I could go biggest. I haven't gone biggest. I run into a lot of technical problems with the paper. I found a way of, I bought some hardboard. I think they're called honeycomb boards. They're very light. And I can tape the paper all around. And so when I'm working on a real solid surface and it's light, I can turn it, I can move it. So, and also the way I approach the drawings is that I take photographs. If I do the island view, for instance, that's pretty much improvised because I lost track. I couldn't keep track of all the leaves and whatnot. So that's more improvised. But when I think of the curled bark, for instance, I take the photograph and I cut and paste it and I put it into Photoshop. And yes, thank you. And that, what I do is I enlarge it to scale in Photoshop, and I pretty much have a template. So I paint exactly what I see from the template. And that's why it's so realistic, because it's following the photograph. Now in Photoshop, I darken, I lighten, I do play with it so that it can be accented. But the drawings were pretty much done mathematically. And it worked. It was boring. I mean, it took months, but when you see it come to life, you say, okay, one more inch today, another inch tomorrow. And I work with a 3-point millimeter pencil, you know, with a very fine point, but it gives me the control.
Oh, I think there's a little challenge to the viewer here because, you know, we have to work a little bit to understand what is happening here and that it is curled bark. I mean, when does anybody see curled bark? And so I think this is, for me, where you start to go abstract, Sheila.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing for me. When I was in college, there always had to, some of the discussions brought up by the professors was always, is this enough? Is it enough to draw just a tree, or do you have to do more to it, suggest some psychology, or to investigate how paint works? And in these cases, I'm just simply drawing the bark or the curled bark. And it was difficult for me to take away the background. I thought, oh my God, what if this isn't enough? And I should do something with the background. But if I did do that, I would lose the intricacy if I put in some kind of a faded background. So in this way, it really does stand out, and it forces you to go close to it.
Right. And I think we have curled bark too, Jen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and again, to me, the question as a viewer is, curled bark is so important that you've taken the time to draw our attention to it twice in such painstaking detail and on such a scale. And so to me, I think it's a little bit of a challenge that you're posing to us, Sheila. Maybe it's not intentional, but I find that interesting about your work. You can leave that if you want to.
Or at least it's the front of one bark and the back of the same bark. So it's the front and back. And in a way, it worked out well for me. I only did 2. I have many more in my computer that I could do, and they're all beautiful. I mean, just photographing them was you know, like, oh, look at that gorgeous thing. But so I only did 2. And I said the Philadelphia Convention Center has these 2. And it's a good thing that I paired them because they bought both at the same time as a pair. So sometimes it works out and other times it doesn't. You know, sometimes you submit 2 pieces to a show that might you relate to each other and one is rejected and the other one is, you know, is accepted. But in this case, it worked and they have both.
I can see them going great in that space too, in a large space like that. Okay, and we have the corn husks are coming up. So.
Oh, these are the abstracts, yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah.
And so at the risk of going more technical, here you've chosen black.
Yeah.
As a background.
Well, I think I came to that decision. When you're working with something for a long time, the white paper can get a lot, can be mishandled, and a buck can die on it. You know, you could spill something on it. So fingerprints and the paper can get really dirty. I do try to cover it up with a mylar of some type so that the white doesn't get damaged. But for some reason, I made a decision to do it in black, and it seems like it's come. I think it is a better decision in this case because it's coming out. You're able to appreciate the light. But I did run into a problem with this darn thing. I don't know if it's worth mentioning, but I was so tired of doing the black just with my graphite that I tried liquid graphite. But that has such a, and because it was a liquid graphite, it started to curl the paper. And I didn't expect it. And now I had this huge sheet of paper with the drawing finished on it. And it was curled. It was just all over the place and shiny because graphite is shiny. So I was panicked and I eventually made a decision. I have to have it dry mounted onto a board so that even if the surface of the graphite has shine, at least it's not going to be giving me flickers. And so I did have it mounted and that saved it.
All right.
Yeah.
Jen, we have some connections being made. I think Jim has a contribution.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Do you want me to answer or ask it?
Please.
Laura?
Yeah.
Okay. Jim, who is one of our regular attendees, thank you, Jim. He was wondering about your inspirations. He said that your work reminds me of the best fantasy artists of the 70s and 80s. Just amazing.
Huh. Thank you. My inspiration, really, I'm still painting or drawing what surrounds me. This corn husk, for instance, I picked it up in a cornfield. I walk my dog all over locally, and this one was crumpled, but the shape was really beautiful. I took it home, and I don't think I did anything to the corn husk. I took a bad photo of it. The photo was not successful, but it suggested something mysterious. And I think it works. Somehow or another, that bad photo, I was able to go past the blurriness of it. It worked out okay.
Yeah.
And the other corn husks are also fun. There's one photograph you have that is a photo of corn husks that I had fun doing in Photoshop, and I had them done up I had them made into inkjet prints, but they're strictly photos. No, these are drawings and these are photographs.
Right, and these just glow.
They're cool because the white is so white. Yeah, and the good thing with this is it was just fun to do because I was exploring how. What I did do is I brought the corn husk home and I bleached them. And so there's no dirt, no, no bug bites or anything on the corn husk. And sometimes there's 2 or 3 husks together. And I just decided to bend them in different directions. And if that didn't quite work, then I superimposed one in Photoshop over another. So I was just building these flowers in Photoshop.
Okay. We're getting close to time. I do want to quickly look at corn husk 2 because it just dances to me, Sheila. So I just want everybody to see that. But we can move forward into the abstracts if you like, unless you have something you want to say about this.
Fine, yeah, you're right, it dances. I mean, the movement is going one way and then another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's look forward to the big reveal, your abstract acrylics that you started during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Is it related to the lockdown, Sheila, or were you going there anyway?
I think I want to have a little bit more fun because the tedium of drawing and not seeing the results, but every 3 months or so, you need pleasure. Sometimes you need more immediate pleasure, and these came together quickly, and and the pleasure came more quickly. So they're explorations. I don't know how long I'll stay with them. Right now I'm having fun, and they could be large, and if nobody else ever thinks that they're good, my daughter will take them. So I'll see what happens with these, but they're just starting on their journey.
Okay, well, let's take a look. We'll move slightly quicker.
Okay.
The next one up is Peacock. And I think we're seeing the fun here, Sheila. We have such exuberant color.
Oh, yeah. The peacock tail is the focus, right? Everything else could be quiet and dull around it, but the peacock tail. So I had to call it something. I don't know why peacock tail, but it seems to make sense.
So what was the inspiration for the abstract? I mean, this seems to me such a departure in style, in genre.
And I can't tell you, I have loved the work of this woman painter, Brenda Goodman. But I mean, my work can't be hers. I mean, she's rough, she's rugged with the way she plays with form, and they have an organic nature. I don't know if I have that, but these almost come out like doodles. That one step goes after the other, and it's organizing space, and it's balancing. So it's nothing more than that. It's just fun with color and form, and again, large is important, I think, because you join that environment.
Okay. I think the next one is interesting because we have a study as well as the picture itself. So on the left, we have the study for Petals, which is 8 by 10. And then we have Petals, which is 68. And now you're up to 82 inches, Sheila.
It went up. And I almost wanted to put that behind me today, but it's not finished. So it would be a disappointment. But I thought that this might be a commission. And so I didn't choose the size. It didn't quite turn out with the commission, but it's, I've been at it a long time, and I keep changing my mind on it. But and it's the petals already has changed. It doesn't look like it does right now. So I found that even though I wanted to have fun and be impulsive, it's never as impulsive, or it's never as much fun. It takes grueling decision making and changing of minds, and so it's taking me a good 2 months already, and it's still not finished.
I think the morph from even here, from the study to Petals, I mean, you've changed your color, temperature, and I mean, you can see the relationship, but they are definitely
different animals completely.
Yeah. Okay. Little curves.
Where are we? Oh, okay. This is a tiny little study. This is an 8 by 10 inch right now. And this is a small little study. These are all studies.
Again, I'm fascinated by your color. I mean, we have purple showing up here, and I think, can I say, Sheila, I almost feel like there's a little bit of a Rorschach test in all your work, not just the abstract, but you know, Jim related it to fantasy, and I'm looking at these colors and seeing, you know, there's the cheerfulness of the purple, and that is moderated by the oyster colors in the background. Do you mind my saying it's a little bit of a Rorschach test?
I love it. I never analyzed it or thought of it, and thank you. You know, I learned something from you, so I'm grateful. I know it's wonderful to hear your knowledgeable descriptions.
You're very generous, Sheila. I appreciate it.
I'm three important things you've said that I have to take with me today.
Thank you for that. Okay, next is anthracite and pink pie. All right, if you don't mind, I'm going to go. With your encouragement, I'm going forth, Sheila. Yeah.
We have too many images anyway.
You told me the other day that you were interested in diagonals. I think we've seen that in some of your other works, and here I think you really capitalized on that. That doesn't take a lot of insight to see that, but you've really brought a lot of dimensionality into the painting through your diagonals here. Yeah, and again, you have these bright touches of green. Would you like? I've talked about your painting. Now, would you like to talk about it?
There are some colors that I'm just much more comfortable with. I don't want to, I don't know where I read it, but it was said once before that any painting done in red, even a bad painting, looks good in red. You know, so certain colors are seductive. And initially, when you're young artists, especially, may start out by using bold colors, but there's a restraint that we learn along the way where you have to bring down the tone and control your color, and don't let the lusciousness of the color decide whether it's going to be a good painting or not. So I think that's really what I'm learning with these, is to manage color and to not let it overtake me somehow, but control it. There was a friend of mine years and years ago made a comment. He was a musician, he was a classical pianist, and he said it's easy to play a loud piece, but it's much harder to play a soft piece, a composition. And that holds true for painting as well, that it's always better to hold back a little bit and not overdo the primary colors.
Right, that's right. Jen, we have a question, a technical question. I'm not sure what painting we're referencing here. I hope I didn't, there we go. I hope we didn't miss it. Can you share that with us, please?
Sure. Nancy wanted to know, and I believe we were talking about little curves, but she wanted to know, how do you paint the cross-hatched areas? What implement do you use?
I think I may have used a brush, although recently I've started to use the acrylic tips. So I may have already at this point used an acrylic pen tip. That's why it is very small, and it's a small painting. Yeah.
All right, thanks for that. And wait, before we move on, we have another question popping in. Can you share that for us, Jen?
Sure. Jean has said that she finds it fascinating to her eye. These pieces move from flat to 3D, which is wonderful. Was that part of your intention?
No, but now that you say it, it will be. I guess I do know that intuitively. Just by putting the shape in the middle on this one, the pink and the red, it looks like a pencil tip. So we're aware of I know that I modeled or I gave form to that bluish I don't know what it looks like, a cloud or some such thing. That has volume, that has three-dimensionality to it. I am interested in bringing together different modes of visual language. So I like the linear, I like volume. And can they be combined? Can you combine different modes of expression, you know, in a painting, overlapping or you know, as whatever I mentioned before holds.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we can see the evolution here, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another study, again, with great color.
Yeah, and this one has the overlapping. You could see that little white organic shape at the bottom right. That sits on top of the, and this one, yeah, this again, all right, dear. You're looking good. I mean, I
dancing. Which one would you like to talk about, Sheila?
Well, maybe let's see the next one. I think you were, this one, it does exist, but I did start to like, I'm using a program called Procreate, and it's a digital drawing program that I use on my iPad. So I have the ability now with my iPhone, it's just so easy. After I'm finished with a day of work, I take a photograph of it, it goes into Procreate, and if I have any problems, I can work out the issues. And so there's a relationship going back and forth between what I actually have finished and what I may have problem solved in Procreate. And this is,
yeah, please.
Yeah, this is one example, because this did go through Procreate quite a bit.
So that's actually interesting that you say that. I'm familiar with Procreate. I'm sure many people in attendance are as well. And I sort of wrote in my notes here that you're starting to look like printmaking, you know, with some of the, in the greens and the pinks, the texture that you have there. It's a completely different character of line that you have in some of your other, in all of your other works.
Yeah, yeah. And the digital manipulation, I guess, allows you to plan like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're done with a syrupy pencil, which, you know, flows so easily. So there are different brushes that you could try, but I use something that works for me. And yes, but it's affecting the outcome.
So before we move into, before we look at we've got one more to look at. I just wanted to talk to you, Sheila, about making such a radical change. I think it's fair to describe this as a radical change. That I think when you're so well known and so well respected for the styles that you've already mastered, I think it takes a lot of courage to leap to in a new direction.
I think being 72 years old allows me to do that. If I were younger, I don't know if I would have, because, you know, you build up I don't think I have such a strong collector base that would insist on one style. So I have that freedom. I'm not that well known. I mean, not well known at all, but it allows me, I can play, and now I can do it for myself. And initially I wanted to build a reputation, a career, and by being consistent, you do that, or having a voice or a vocabulary, you do that. But I don't have anything to risk at this stage. You know, I can play, and that's the whole beauty of not having to retire from art. You know, that you can do this until you go senile or whatever. So it's okay. I can play, and I'll go back to drawing too. I don't sell so much. I work slowly, and it's done. I do it because there's nothing better I can do with my time.
I think that's such a great way of looking at it, that you have the freedom to, because so many people would feel that they have a reputation to uphold that they wouldn't want to risk. And so I think it's pretty fearless. So I respect that. My hat is off to you. Can you talk about your influences for the abstract? Do you have influences for?
I'm not good with remembering names, but Brenda Goodman is one of the few that comes up. Initially, back in the 90s, I was already there. I think there was Richard Hennessy. I loved his work. And I don't know if he's around, but I remember I loved movement in abstraction. And here I am doing flat stuff. So I don't know. This is just what comes out. And I'm not going after any philosophy, or I don't know. I'm just finding my way, and I'm at the beginning of it. But who else? I mean, as a youngster, everybody, I mean, for me, it was Picasso when I was 18 years old, but there have been many. But I have a huge file of on the internet of artists whom I follow and love, and most of the artists at Schmidt-Dean Gallery are wonderful. So I'm happy to be in their good company.
That's great. Well, I don't want people to miss this last painting. I held it back because I think it's an extraordinary piece. So Jen, if we could see Jack and Jill.
Oh, you like that one?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's suggested by the title, but I think of it as a portrait that is, if you look at the relationship between the figures, I think it's extraordinary. Again, maybe it's Rorschach, but I think, yeah, that's what I'm responding to anyway.
I'm so happy you like it, because I want to make this. This is my little favorite one. It's so tiny. It sits on my shelf, and I keep wanting to do it. I think the color, I love the it's not even monochromatic, but the depth, well, whatever it is, I just like it myself. And I thought, I wonder what this would look large. It's almost too simple, though. It scares me that it's simple. But I'm so glad you like it, because I thought I was the only one. Nobody ever made a fuss over it.
Well, you've actually made my day. I know nothing, Sheila, but I think it is definitely not too simple. I think it's wonderful. We'll take one more question. We've got a couple of minute late start. I'm going to, I ask everybody's indulgence. We'll take one more question before we close up. Jen, can you help us, please?
Nancy said she loves the independence of Jack and Jill. They are paired but separate. So there you go, Sheila, another fan.
Oh, I'm so happy. Now I'll definitely paint it.
All right. Well, very good. Thank you, everybody. Sheila, I can't express how honored we are for you to take the step of sharing your new work with us here on ArtTalk. That's a real honor. I appreciate it.
Thank you for indulging me. I appreciate it.
Okay, Csilla Sadloch is represented, I think you said, by the Schmidt-Dean Gallery in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. We're going to look forward to seeing your works there. We can't wait to see what shows up in the gallery. And Sheila, I feel like I've been on a journey with you, and I love to travel. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you.
Next time on ArtTalk, we're going to get technical. We have tips on photographing your artwork for submission online to shows like the upcoming Phillips Mill Art Show. This will be our 90-second show. Artist Jane Ramsey has developed some excellent slides to help you show your work to its best advantage. And we have photographer Donna Lovely to talk about camera work, and maybe we'll get a little bit of Photoshop tips on that as well. That's July 11th at 5 p.m. Register via phillipsmill.org. We hope to see you then. Thank you for spending time with us this afternoon. Thanks to show producer Dennis Riley for putting this episode together. Very special one. And thanks to ArtTalk executive producer Jen McHugh.
No problem.
I'm your host, Laura Womack. Good evening, and thank you all again. Good night.
Good night.